Hello, my name is Rachel. I am the work wife. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be a continuation of something that I did. I did a video a couple of weeks ago about ADHD, and today I want to touch upon even the diagnosis, especially as a woman. It's coming out more and more that women's ADHD presents differently from men's, so that's something to be on the lookout for if you have been thinking that maybe you do have ADHD, but you're simply not sure because it doesn't line up with the usual qualities, for lack of a better word. But before I jump into the video, I am the work wife. I am a workplace and mindset coach and mentor, having nearly 20 years of professional corporate experience, having successfully navigated my way out and through some toxic work environments. So that is kind of my specialty. So if you're dealing with a toxic work environment right now, or toxic coworker, boss, even employee, if you're a manager or supervisor, I can help. So feel free to reach out to me at my email address at theworkwifellc@gmail.com, or DM me on Instagram at _work_wife. I'll leave a link down below in the description, or you can reach out to me directly on TikTok as well. So I'd love to hear from you. And before we jump in, definitely give this video a like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, so I appreciate you all. Dealing with ADHD as a woman, I was diagnosed late in life. Probably 3-4 years ago. So in hindsight, it explains a lot. I think I may have touched on this before. But the reason that I mentioned it presents differently is because a lot of times people think ADHD is hyperactivity, and that tends to present more in men than it does in women. Also, one of the aspects of ADHD that I didn't realize is being short-tempered. I don't consider myself short-tempered, but it's linked to being short-tempered. It's linked to depression. It's linked to more on the side for women, inattentiveness. And a lot of times we could just be telling ourselves, I'm just distracted. I just don't feel like doing whatever I'm doing, and I will find a million other things to do to get into my way. And we kind of punish ourselves for that, which is going to come later in the video. I want to touch on that. We punish ourselves for that, and we think, why can't I just get my act together? It may be ADHD. So it is worth it to go to a specialist who diagnoses ADHD. You're going to have a series of a large questionnaire, talk extensively with the specialist. It is not something, I know I've had this experience where you go to your primary physician and you say, hey, I've been having issues with brain fog or inattentiveness. And it very well could be a medical issue, like dealing with your thyroid or something like that. So it's also worth it to get blood work done, especially as women, to understand your hormones. If you've been in a consistently bad mood for longer than usual, that could very well be a hormonal issue, or it could be ADHD. So it's important to not just go to your primary physician and they kind of said, well, it could be a thyroid issue, this or that. And then if you mention possibly having ADHD, they may ask you 2 or 3 questions and then just dispense something that they think might help you. Don't do that. Go to a specialist. Research someone in your area who specializes in this, because it is an extensive process in order to be officially diagnosed. So don't get, that breezy, oh yeah, you have ADHD, here's this medication, this should help, right? And it's some sort of, stimulant. It could be a lot more complicated than that, especially if you're dealing with hormonal issues as well. So please go to a specialist and please get your blood work done so you could really narrow it down. So with that in mind, I discovered a lot of things about myself, which I kind of attributed to just general stress and depression. But inattentive ADHD is a thing, especially in women, where you go off into outer space in your mind and you literally don't hear the person talking to you at work, or, you find yourself extremely lethargic. You always want to take a nap. And it's partly avoidance, but it's also genuine fatigue. And as I mentioned before, depression is also linked to ADHD. Now, interestingly about the depression, I want to touch on perfectionism, because frequently in women, especially, well, with men, I'm going to say everybody, perfectionism is a byproduct of ADHD, in the sense that you already know, depending on when your diagnosis is, that you're different, neurodivergent, possibly, but you'll get to that if you're officially diagnosed. But something about you is different. And maybe as a child or as a teenager, or even as an adult, you engage in masking. Masking is where you realize that you're different, or you realize that you're struggling with attention, and you try to just mimic the people around you. If you feel like you're lethargic, you don't ask for help. You just mimic other people in that you want to just fit in. And yes, it still applies to adults, whether we want to admit it or not. If we feel that we don't have a support system and we can't openly discuss what we're going through prior to an official diagnosis, when you're still trying to figure out what the hell is going on with you, you don't want to be that literal odd man out or odd woman out. So you engage in a lot of masking, in the sense that, you'll say, oh yeah, I feel the same way. And meanwhile, you have I've got tons of energy, people around you. Coffee just does it for me. And meanwhile, you're like, I drink tons and tons of coffee and it doesn't do anything for me. And instead of speaking your truth, you try to fit in and make yourself, just like everybody else. Which leads to the perfectionism part, because you know damn well you're not like anyone else, and because you're punishing yourself for it, especially as a younger person, it leads to this desire to be perfect, which is ironic, because you're not really trying to be perfect, you're just trying to be like everyone else, and God knows everyone else is not perfect. But that's a little distortion in your thinking pattern, especially if you've been shamed or embarrassed to be who you are. Which leads to perfectionism, because you're trying to fit in, you're trying to be as perfect as possible for the people who want you to be perfect, because you just want to have a harmonious life with approval from your caregivers or family or friends or coworkers or bosses. You just want to feel normal, and you're not, and that's perfectly okay, because who's normal anyway, especially in these times. So, but that's another topic. But perfectionism, basically, I know I dealt with it. I just discovered it recently that was my major issue, in the sense that I'm holding myself to this unattainable standard. And instead of just accepting myself for who I am, and that is not an excuse to not pay attention to what's going on in my body and my mind. I'm not saying that, but give yourself some grace for being who you are, instead of chasing perfectionism, chasing other people's definition of perfectionism. Because there is no objective definition of perfectionism. It is whoever the person who's talking to you or taking care of you, or whom you're relying on for emotional support, is somehow criticizing you for you being who you are. And then you say to yourself, well, I gotta be perfect in order to fit in, or get their love, or get their approval, or just have an easier life. And then you conform to whatever standard that person has set for you. So your identity is all based on what other people's expectations are for you. And that's when the discordance begins, where you're not being yourself, you're masking in order to please other people, and there's just this running program going on in your mind saying that you're not good enough as is. That's what perfectionism leads to. It's an unattainable standard that you're chasing, so you're always going to feel like crap, because you're never going to get it. You're never going to make it. Spoiler alert, you're never going to be perfect. I had to tell this to myself, actually, and it was somewhat of an eye-opening bitter pill to swallow once I realized that was the thing that was driving me in a lot of my endeavors and making me feel like I couldn't do anything right, so why try? What's the point, right? And that leads to procrastination, which is another major aspect of ADHD. You procrastinate because you want to be perfect. If you can't be perfect, then why start? Because you're telling yourself, you don't know, but you're telling yourself it's going to be shit anyway. whatever I do, I can't get through anything on time. So why start? It's been a major, major issue in both my professional and personal life, just to let you know. So, so perfectionism. I'm just going on and on with this, just as I realize different things. But I'll talk more about, I think I've talked about procrastination before, but perfectionism and procrastination go hand in hand. So it's important to, number one, get a diagnosis if you really feel you're down that road. If you're not ready to get a diagnosis, or you don't have the time, or maybe a specialist in your area, examine whether or not you are making your life more miserable by chasing perfectionism. Because the minute I realized this, and then I just stopped, I realized, oh my gosh, I can breathe again. I'm not constantly having a, inner talk telling me that I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing well enough, or I'm not going to be successful at whatever I do before I've even started it. If you do just that self-examination, whether or not you have ADHD, actually, you do that self-examination and realize, yeah, I'm trying to, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, which, no little bit, you are or you aren't. It's worth exploring. And then here's some homework for you. Try to do things poorly for a couple of days, deliberately. You are not allowed to do anything perfectly. Whatever you have set on your plate that you have to do perfectly. I'm not talking about work. That's unfortunately another matter. But something, let's say, in your household that you've been meaning to tackle and you simply can't get to it. Whether it's decluttering or whatever, organizing, taking notes, whatever it is. I'd rather you do it poorly than not at all. So that's your challenge. I'm going to leave that video, the end of the video, with a challenge for you. See where you are when you are not allowed. Your hands are literally tied from doing things perfectly. We're having it just so. You're not allowed. And see how that feels. I suspect that you're going to feel maybe perhaps more motivated to do it, even though you've been procrastinating about it. But if it causes you anxiety to literally not try to be perfect, that's your sign right there that it's something worth exploring, and then maybe you need to clean up your inner speech about yourself, because it all starts with you. Once you give your power away to other people and you abdicate your authority to other people and their opinions of you, you're going to be chasing that for the rest of your life. It's a bottomless pit, my friend. So I strongly suggest you support you be your own best friend, and see how the homework goes. And let me know down below in the comments if you have a hard time with this task of not doing everything to perfection, and how it made you feel. So until that time, I'm looking forward to your comments. Stay cool, stay centered, and I will see you in the next video.